Straight to a Fox News alert, another deadly attack rocking London overnight.
Brian, Stephen Ainsley, look, these just keep coming. London constantly being attacked at the moment. But of course, what makes this attack, which took place just in the street behind me here, what makes it so strikingly different is that this was for the first time a vehicle-borne attack on Muslims. And of course, we've become almost used to seeing it the other way around. But this really shocking in this very diverse community where we're at now.
Overnight, terror strikes London again. At least 10 injured and 1 dead on the scene, possibly unrelated to the attack. A crowd of worshippers just leaving evening prayers at a local mosque targeted in a malicious attack. At 12:15 a.m., authorities already calling it a major incident. A white van on Seven Sisters Road in North London suddenly accelerating, veering off the road and ramming into the pedestrians, leaving behind a trail of broken and bloodied victims. Bystanders wrestled the alleged suspect from this van, pinning him down until officers arrived.
No one touched him, no one!
When he was on the ground, I asked him, why did you do that? Why? Innocent people. He goes, I want to kill Muslims.
Within minutes, police and emergency crews were swarming the scene, shutting down the area.
Stop filming and get out of the corridor.
People tended to the injured, administering chest compressions at the scene. It started as a night of worship during the holy month of Ramadan. Mosque members are seen here just moments before their night of prayer turned deadly. Horrified, nearby residents described a scene of carnage. This latest incident comes as the City of London is still on edge. Officials now call this a terror attack, and it is the 4th terrorist attack in Great Britain this year. Just 2 weeks ago, a white van driving on the London Bridge plowed into pedestrians, the attackers then going on a deadly stabbing spree. This morning, Prime Minister Theresa May saying this is a terrible incident.
It is a reminder that terrorism, extremism and hatred take many forms, and our determination to tackle them must be the same whoever is responsible. There has been far too much tolerance of extremism in our country over many years. That is why this government will act to stamp out extremist and hateful ideology.
A terror attack on a popular tourist destination in Mali. A UN security official in the West African nation says terrorists with guns stormed a luxury resort in a town near the capital. Reuters reports at least 2 people killed, but the UN official has yet to confirm the number of dead and injured. There are also reports of hostages. This area is popular with Westerners, and we're told officials from the French military mission in Mali, the European Union, and the UN were in the region this weekend. And today's attack comes just days after the U.S. State Department warned of possible attacks on Western diplomatic missions in the area. Attacks have become more frequent around the capital as French troops and UN peacekeeping forces have battled jihadists in the former French colony.
Begin tonight with breaking news overseas. For the first time, a U.S. fighter jet has shot down a Syrian warplane. The details are just coming in. The Pentagon says the Syrian plane bombed U.S.-backed forces battling ISIS in the northern part of the country. President Trump has been briefed on the situation. The Pentagon says this was in self-defense.
Cecilia, for the first time in almost 20 years, a U.S. aircraft has shot down another manned aircraft. This afternoon in the skies over Syria, the U.S. watched as the Syrian jet bombed the U.S.-backed positions. They got on the hotline to the Russians, said stop it. The Syrian jet continued to attack these positions, and shortly thereafter, the Navy pilot was cleared to fire an air-to-air missile and knock down this Su-22.
Very tense situation over there. How much could this escalate the conflict in that region?
Well, we saw President Trump make a very clear statement with the Tomahawk strike. Hopefully this will set some limits in the skies over Syria. The U.S. has been pushed by the Russians and the Syrians for a long time in the airspace over Syria, so hopefully this will calm things down. But it's up to Mr. Putin. The ball is in his court. He could escalate it to the point where this becomes a direct confrontation between U.S. and Russian forces.
Okay.
Russia has sent out a warning to the US-led coalition in Syria that it will view all aircraft as targets after a Syrian fighter was downed. The coalition attacked the Su-22 after it launched a strike on US-backed rebels in Raqqa province. Moscow said that it would no longer cooperate with the US in order to prevent air accidents. The Russian Defense Ministry said any aircraft, including planes and drones belonging to the international coalition operating west of the Euphrates River, will be tracked by Russian anti-aircraft forces in the sky and on the ground and treated as targets. Syria has condemned the shooting down, saying it was a flagrant attack with dangerous repercussions. Washington claimed the Su-22 had dropped bombs on Syrian Defense Force positions, and according to the rules of engagement, it was immediately shot down. It added that it did not wish to provoke Russia or pro-regime forces, but it would defend its coalition partners.
Iran and China are conducting joint military exercises across the Persian Gulf region and the Sea of Oman. Some 1,400 military personnel from the two countries are taking part. An Iranian destroyer, as well as 2 Chinese warships, are among the vessels participating in the naval maneuvers. Iranian Navy commanders say the two countries will exchange defense experiences during the drill. Iranian Navy also says the exercises are aimed at boosting political and diplomatic ties between the two nations and providing peace and security across the region. This is the first time Iran and China conduct joint military exercises since 2014.
Iran says it has fired missiles at an Islamic State base in Syria in retaliation for attacks by the extremist group last week. Iran also warned that it would strike any group which stages attacks on its soil. The missile strikes hit targets in Deir el-Zor in eastern Syria. 18 people were killed in Iran after gunmen stormed the parliament and attacked a holy shrine in Tehran. Syria's 6-year-long civil war has now evolved into an international conflict, drawing in many nations. The US, Britain, Russia, Israel, Saudi Arabia and Turkey have all carried out airstrikes on Syrian territory. More than 300,000 people have been killed, and the fighting has taken on a sectarian dimension as Sunnis and Shiite Muslims fight each other.
Well, Saudi Arabia and Israel are reportedly in talks to establish economic ties as part of their new emerging alliance in the Middle East. Israeli and British media have quoted Arab and American sources as saying that Riyadh and Tel Aviv are considering steps to normalize their relations. Now, they say the two sides may initially agree on allowing Israeli companies to set up businesses in the Saudi kingdom or letting Israeli airline El Al use Saudi airspace. Sources close to Saudi Arabia, however, dismissed the story, saying the report was no more than wishful thinking by the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump. Israel and Saudi Arabia have no diplomatic relations, but there have been various reports of secret talks between military and intelligence officials of the two sides in the past to pursue mutual interests as well as to explore ways of confronting Iran.
White House senior advisor Jared Kushner will travel to Israel and Ramallah in the West Bank this week. President Donald Trump has made it clear that working towards achieving a lasting peace agreement between the Israelis and Palestinians is a top priority for him, a White House official told CNN.
The president returned to the White House following his first trip to Camp David, where in 2000 President Bill Clinton hosted a peace summit with Israeli and Palestinian leaders.
I am committed to trying to achieve a peace agreement between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
The president believes forging a historic peace agreement is possible and believes his son-in-law is especially fit to achieve it.
He is so great. If you can't produce peace in the Middle East, nobody can.
A White House official says Kushner, who joined Mr. Trump on his recent trip to the Middle East, will hear directly from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. The official says Kushner will likely make a number of visits to the region.
In the wake of recent violence, the Israeli government is now accelerating a program to place cameras in the West Bank as an attempt to deter terrorism. The army has already installed close to 1,700 cameras on roads, intersections, and settlements, but hopes to soon have all West Bank intersections monitored. The army believes that the cameras will both help to deter terror attacks and will assist security forces in apprehending terrorists. During the Second Intifada, improved signals intelligence capabilities of both the Shin Bet security services and the Army Intelligence Corps were vital in thwarting terror cells affiliated with Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and Fatah. However, the recent rise in lone wolf terror attacks has presented Israeli security forces with new challenges in apprehending and preventing Palestinian attacks. In addition to surveillance, Israeli security forces are also monitoring Palestinian social media accounts and have reportedly identified close to 2,200 Palestinians as being in various stages of planning attacks.
Through Monday, NATO troops from multiple countries will be conducting war games in an area many fear is vulnerable to a potential Russian attack. Located near the border of Lithuania and Poland, the Suwalki Gap is 60 miles of flat land. On either side of the gap is Kaliningrad, Russia's western enclave, and Belarus, a Russian ally. Experts say the Suwalki Gap would be an ideal area for Russia to advance tanks if it tried to cut off the Baltic states from their NATO allies. It's been a cause for concern for years, but this weekend's exercise marked Lithuania and Poland's first large-scale defensive drill there. American and British forces are also among the 1,500 soldiers taking part in the drills.
Well, Russia has condemned new anti-Cuba measures by the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump as, quote, regrettable. The Russian Foreign Ministry has confirmed its solidarity with Havana, saying the new Cuba policies adopted by the U.S. administration resemble Cold War rhetoric. Trump has ordered tighter restrictions on Americans traveling to Cuba and a crackdown on U.S. business dealings with the country's military. The U.S. president has described his predecessor's liberalizing ties with Cuba as terrible and misguided. He has, however, kept some changes made by former President Barack Obama, including the reopened U.S. embassy in Havana. Cuba has denounced Trump's move as hostile.
North Korea claims its UN diplomats were, quote, mugged at a New York airport and had a diplomatic package forcibly confiscated by the police there. Pyongyang has blasted the US over the incident, calling it an illegal and heinous act of provocation, with tensions between the two countries already at a high over North Korea's detention of American citizens.
North Korea state media said on Sunday that the regime's UN delegation had been robbed of a diplomatic package by U.S. officials at New York's JFK airport. The North Korean diplomats were reportedly on their way back to Pyongyang after attending a UN conference on the rights of persons with disabilities. The North branded the U.S. a lawless gangster state over the episode and said the international community should seriously reconsider the suitability of New York City as a seat of the United Nations. Department of Homeland Security spokesman David Lepan said on Sunday that DHS agents did confiscate multiple items from 3 North Korean nationals, but said they were not accredited members of Pyongyang's mission to the UN and thus had no diplomatic immunity. The latest incident comes amid heightened tensions between North Korea and the U.S. following the release of an American student who was detained by the regime for nearly a year and a half. 22-year-old Otto Warmbier was returned to his family in the U.S. last week, but remains in a comatose state, with many suspecting he underwent serious abuse while in captivity.
Tens of thousands of American service members in Asia face a growing threat from North Korea. Dictator Kim Jong-un has carried out nearly a dozen missile tests since the beginning of the year. About 28,000 American troops are stationed in South Korea. Nora O'Donnell is on assignment in Seoul with a look at the threat and the approach of South Korea's new president, Moon Jae-in.
With this new South Korean president, he is making a lot of news, promising to shake things up. Just take a look at the front page of the paper here. President Moon is now promising dialogue with the North. That puts him at odds with President Trump, raising a lot of questions about what the two leaders can achieve at next week's White House summit.
This is the hospital here.
Here in the heart of Seoul lies Yongsan Army Garrison, the U.S.'s largest military base in South Korea.
And what's the total population of Yongsan?
Well, the total supported population is nearly 22,000.
We toured the base today with Garrison Commander Colonel Scott Peterson, who said they're ready for anything.
Is it true that every family has a gas mask?
They have protective equipment, that's right. So every family that comes through, children have special ones designed for them, spouses as well.
The threat from North Korea is growing. Kim Jong-un is stepping up not only his technical capability, but also the pace. 10 missile tests just this year.
What good options are there?
It's called the land of lousy options.
John Delory is a professor at Yonsei University in Seoul and an expert in North Korean affairs.
Does North Korea have the capability to launch a nuclear weapon?
We have to assume they can launch a nuclear missile. Not an ICBM, but they can put a warhead on a missile and hit targets in South Korea and in the region.
Under threat, 28,000 troops in South Korea, more than 50,000 in Japan, and more than 6,000 in Guam.
Overnight, the Navy releasing the names of the 7 sailors found dead in the mangled midsection of the USS Fitzgerald. They range in age from 19 to 37, their hometowns spanning the country from Connecticut to California. But this morning, authorities are trying to figure out why multiple maritime trackers show the ACX Crystal cargo ship completing a giant U-turn just minutes before colliding with the naval vessel. Now, a new twist. The ACX's charter company denying it pulled that U-turn and claiming the incident happened 50 minutes earlier than the Navy. The Navy saying the discrepancy is one of the things 4 investigative bodies that have been set up will examine, but the fundamental question remains how an island-sized container ship managed to T-bone one of the Navy's most sophisticated ships. The Navy says at 2:20 Saturday morning, the 30,000-ton container ship nearly gutted the USS Fitzgerald, the ship's bulbous bow slamming right into the berthing quarters where over 100 sailors sleep, slicing open a 10-foot section.
The water flow was tremendous, and so there wasn't a lot of time in those spaces that were open to the sea.
Many trapped inside as the water rose. The captain's quarters also hit. He and 2 others medevac, the mother of one of the surviving sailors telling ABC News her son and many others fought for hours to save one of the Navy's most sophisticated missile ships from sinking.
They had to fight the ship to keep it above the surface, so it was traumatic.
The investigation will hinge on 2 major questions. How such a ship with some of the best radar in the world and multiple officers tasked with watching it failed to notice a stadium-sized cargo ship approaching, and why this happened. Military officials telling me everything is on the table, including the possibility this may have been intentional or even a terrorist attack, David.
CNN has reported that a manhunt is on for 4 foreign inmates who staged a brazen escape from an Indonesian prison early Monday morning. The men dug a 15-meter-long tunnel under the wall of Karabokan prison on the Indonesian island of Bali. One of the men, 33-year-old Australian Sean Davidson, had less than 3 months left on his sentence after he was jailed last year for violating immigration law. The 3 others, 43-year-old Dimitar Nikolov from Bulgaria, 31-year-old Syed Mohammed Saeed from India, and 50-year-old T. Kok King from Malaysia, were facing between 5 and 12 more years in prison. Police said immigration and airport authorities had been alerted and a manhunt was underway.
Results from France's parliamentary election are clear. The Republic is marching forward with Emmanuel Macron. The newly elected president's party, Republic on the Move, and its ally, the Democratic Movement, won 350 out of 577 seats in the National Assembly. But public participation was low. Only 42% of eligible voters turned out, and that's even lower than the 48.7% who voted in the first round. The National Front Party, whose firebrand populist Marine Le Pen challenged Macron for the presidency, only won 8 seats. Macron's party put up challengers for 526 of the 577 seats. More than half were women, and 219 were new to politics.
Also around the world, over in the United Kingdom, the country and the European Union have officially launched negotiations on their divorce. Brexit Secretary David Davis arrived in Brussels on Monday to hold talks with the EU's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier. The meeting comes a year after the UK voted in a referendum to leave the EU. Davis said he hopes the talks would produce a deep and special partnership with the European bloc, while his counterpart, Barnier, said he hoped they could agree a format and timetable. The UK will officially leave the EU on March 30th, 2019.
UK police have released images of the inside of Grenfell Tower and have warned the death toll will rise above 58. Prime Minister Theresa May is chairing another meeting of the Grenfell Tower Recovery Task Force today, amid criticism from the opposition Labour Party of the government's response to the tragedy.
The people I met in the church today, and I've met every day over the last few days, are showing their resilience. They're showing a community coming together to grieve, but also a community frustrated and, yes, angry. Angry not simply at the poor response in the days afterwards from the council and the government, but the years of neglect from the council and successive governments.
Search and recovery efforts are likely to go on for weeks, if not months, authorities warn. Police say the almost indescribable extent of the damage from the fire means the bodies of some of those missing may never be identified. Portugal's Prime Minister has called it the greatest tragedy of human lives witnessed in the country in years. A forest fire raging in the mountainous central Pedrógão Grande area since Saturday has killed more than 60 people and wounded 59, 5 of whom are in a serious condition. A number of others are said to be missing, including a friend of this man. Over 20 villages have been affected by the inferno, which police say may have been caused by lightning striking a tree. My sister's house burned down, said this woman. The police came looking for us because we couldn't breathe. The government has declared 3 days of national mourning. It has deployed 2 army battalions to help some 400 firefighters to tackle the blaze. Help has also been offered from the EU, France and Spain. According to Portugal's Interior Minister, most of the victims were caught in their vehicles on the road.
Here in the U.S., there's extreme weather on this last weekend of spring. Dangerous heat in the west and southwest and violent storms in the center of the country. There has also been an outbreak of wildfires. Paula Reed has the story.
Wildfires in Bryan Head, Utah have now spread across 1,000 acres, forcing hundreds of people to evacuate the small Utah ski town. Fires also continue to rage across other western states. In Southern California, firefighting planes attacked brush fires near Castaic Lake. An abandoned campfire sparked another fire in northern New Mexico, forcing hundreds from their homes.
We're helping with water, we're helping with housing, and just, animals and, whatever anybody needs. We're just trying to do whatever, towels, blankets, anything that's necessary.
Early Sunday, officials said they are finally getting that fire under control.
When you see black on the map, that is a good thing. We are considering this contained.
Summer doesn't officially start until Wednesday, but states in the Southwest are seeing temperatures in the triple digits, prompting some residents to take precautions.
I know it's going to be hot. I can't stand the heat, so it's like I need something to spray myself.
She brought also a towel because of the hot seats, so she can put it down there so we're not roasting our, dishes not like jumping up.
The dangerous heat is expected to continue baking the Southwest region throughout the week. As heat and fire plague the West, wet storms pounded Missouri with lightning and heavy rains. Power outages mean families can't even get relief from the heat indoors.
It's very sticky, very humid, and not tolerable.
Torrential rainfall in south-central Chile has claimed the lives of at least 4 people. A number of residents here in Curanilaue, some 600 kilometers south of the capital, Santiago, have lost their homes, cars and businesses to flooding. Struggling to control the water, they're now hoping for help from the government to get back on their feet.
Everybody just thought he was having fun.
A 9-year-old boy's quick thinking may have saved a 3-year-old boy from drowning in a pool.
I thought, wait a minute, he's underwater, and I don't even think he can swim because he's only 3 years old.
Colby Hurd says he noticed the child underwater for too long, so he pulled the 3-year-old up above the water and dragged him to the nearest adult. That man carried the child out of the pool in a lifeless state. Colby's mom, who is a nurse, heard the boy's mother scream for help and rushed right over to administer CPR.
All my focus was come on baby, come on baby, come on baby. And I felt like I was in CPR class all over again.
Severia Hurd says she worked on the boy until the ambulance arrived. The boy was taken to the hospital where he was treated for water in his lungs. And today his mother says he's doing well. As pleased as Severia was to get the boy breathing again, she says she was most proud of Colby for doing his part to help the boy.
I'm like, it was you? And he's like, yeah, Mom. When I found out it was him, like, I gave him a hug.
Now Colby and his mom are being hailed as heroes for preventing a tragedy. And no one is more grateful for their actions than the child's mother.
Him and his mom saved my baby life, and I thank them so much. I thank God for having them around and for her to have the heart and for him to be so courageous to do something.
Take care of the people you don't know, but it's always a responsibility. If someone doesn't see them, you should just help them even though you don't know them.